Jordan Schultz joining us, an insider with the NBA and NFL. Broken a couple of stories here as of late. Joins us on the program. Let me start with that. Tyreek Hill, maybe on the move. What do you think?
DP, can you believe this offseason? So the key thing for me is, they have tried to find a number for him and have not been able to get there. So the fact that they're at this point tells you that it's probably pretty close. They have reached out to a ton of teams. Miami and Kansas City are the two that are most likely. But to your point, Dan, he wants Devontae Adams money. He thinks he's the best receiver in the league. He's been on my show. He's basically said as much. The problem is Kansas City doesn't have a tremendous amount of cap space, and they believe, Brett Veach, the GM, does, that they can win whoever it is because they have Patrick Mahomes. The keynote here is Marvin Allen, who's the assistant GM who reports directly to Chris Greer in Miami, was the assistant GM with Kansas City and director of scouting when they drafted Tyreek Hill. So there's a history there. Obviously, the thought with Miami is if you compare Hill with Waddle, you've added a big-time offensive lineman in Teron Armstead. Suddenly, even to your point about Tua, maybe there's some magic there.
Can the Chiefs still keep him?
They can still keep him if they'll come up, but I just don't see them coming up. Even if it's a compromise of somewhere in the middle, 25, I don't know if that's going to get it done. They've asked, I just got a text. They've asked for at least 2 number ones. So you talked about the number 10 pick from the Jets. That's not going to do it. Okay. That's a tremendous amount to give up for a wide receiver. And to me, as great as Tyreek Hill is, to give up 2 number ones and potentially more, I don't know if that's the right move.
What's the market for Baker Mayfield?
It's not as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, which surprised me because Garoppolo's coming off the shoulder surgery. But to me, Baker Mayfield, I guess people think number 1 pick, Heisman Trophy winner. He played hurt. There's still some upside there. So there is a market for him. The problem for him in Cleveland is there's just not a lot of teams left that need a quarterback. We've heard Seattle. I know they've talked to Cleveland. I don't think anything's gotten really serious. They still have Drew Lock, and they still have a free agent in Geno Smith. To me, Baker Mayfield right now has played his last down with Cleveland. But I'm just not so sure the Browns are in any specific hurry to actually make a move because they know the market for him is not significant. And they've waited, right? They wanted to make sure they had a quarterback. They got their quarterback in Deshaun Watson. They signed Jacoby Brissett. But now it's like, okay, do we make a move just to make a move? Or if I'm the GM, do I just want to be a little bit patient and see what I can get?
The pro days, everybody has a great pro day. Malik Willis yesterday had a great pro day. I don't know if these things mean anything, though. When you're I love the personality that Malik Willis showed on his pro day, Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay. But, everybody rolls left and throws right, 60 yards. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the new thing you have to do. Pro days don't mean anything to me. I want to know what you do in an actual game. So it feels like there's a lot of love, maybe too much love for Malik Willis. What team makes sense for him?
Well, him and Kenny Pickett have both jumped up considerably. Pickett's game film is better. He had 41 touchdowns. He won the Johnny Unitas Award. Willis, I asked about Willis, who struggled against Mississippi State this year because he was at Liberty. I asked a couple people, does that hurt his stock? And the answer was no. And I said, why not? They said, well, look who's around him. He's not in a great program. He didn't have time to throw. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of talent around him. But he had a great pro day because he made that same throw that Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence did where they're rolling out right and then they come back left and they throw 60 yards off platform. Now, I'm not a quarterback guru like Carson Palmer, who's terrific, and I know he's on your show a lot. But I asked, does that matter? And guys said, yeah, because you see that and you're like, oh, what can I do with that? All these teams believe they can make Malik Willis into a great quarterback. The same with Kenny Pickett. I asked an NFC assistant GM about Pickett, and he said the same thing, which is he's a really good athlete. He doesn't have the same arm as Malik, but he's probably more ready right now. I think both of those guys are in the top 10 right now. Pittsburgh, I know, loves both. They're not going to be able to get those guys in the early 20s, so they would have to move up.
You think both go in the top 10?
Yes, I do. I think Malik Willis can go as high as 2, and I don't think Pickett gets outside the top 10. That's what an NFC assistant GM told me a couple days ago.
You could see the Lions going all in?
Yes, yeah. The Lions have their stopgap in Jared Goff, but they're paying him a lot. He's not the future. I think the Lions, they drafted Penei Sewell last year, and they need a quarterback. I think, Pittsburgh could move up. There's the only thing I'll say is this. Then you start to think about, Matt Corral and some of these other guys, Carson Strong. Could you wait because there's not that much of a difference? All it takes is one team to move up and love you. And as you know, teams get crazy around the draft of quarterbacks.
We're talking to Jordan Schultz, the Shorts Report, NFL, NBA insider, also co-host of Pull Up Podcast with CJ McCollum. When's the last time you talked to CJ, and have you brought up the Zion Williamson dunk?
Yes, I have. We talked 2 days ago. CJ's from Cleveland, from Kent. He's a big Browns fan. So I wanted to gauge his reaction. I think he believes, as do many, that the Browns are Super Bowl contenders now, at least if Deshaun plays. So I know he's happy about Cleveland. I've asked him about Zion because remember when he got traded there, he told me I was involved in the process, Dan, with New Orleans. I knew they liked me. I knew David Griffin was interested. It was time to move on. He immediately talked to Brandon Ingram, but he did not hear from Zion Williamson. And I asked him, did that bother you? Because Zion's supposed to be the face of the franchise. And he said, no, we eventually hashed it out. I did not ask him about the dunk. You're talking about like the 360 or whatever he went between his legs.
Yeah.
I didn't ask him about that, but I did say, what's your gauge on Zion? He says he's a really good kid. People forget he's 21, 22 years old. And he's been the number one player in the country since he's 15 years old. And there's something to be said about that. Just on the big picture here, I don't know if Zion Williamson's going to ever play for the Pelicans again. He's played 85 games in his career. If you don't trade him this summer, Dan, what are you going to get for him long term? And if you don't believe he's going to stay healthy, what are we talking about here?
You think that Zion has played his last game in New Orleans?
I think there's a very good chance he will not be back and they will trade him this summer, or at least strongly explore trades. Yes.
What could you get for Zion Williamson?
You can get right now a lottery pick, no question about it. You drafted a number one. Do you get that back? Absolutely not. He's still very young. He averaged 27 points a game last year. He was terrific. Remember he was shooting threes and he was passing and you thought, okay, I can see it. You can still get a lottery pick for him. But if you're in New Orleans and you're trying to build, you have Herb Jones, who's a good young player. You have CJ. You have Brandon Ingram. You need one more piece, but he's got to be available, and Zion has not been available.
Okay, but is this because you don't think you can sign him or that he's damaged goods?
The latter. Because he has significant weight problems. We've seen the reports. He's over 300 pounds. He's 290. He's back to 310. You've seen the pictures. He hasn't been around the team this year either. And from what I've heard, he's a really good kid. But he's been in Portland working out and trying to rehab. I've heard great things. He's been in it. He's finally back in New Orleans now. Maybe he can play early next season. But the bottom line is you cannot extend him if you're in New Orleans, given that he's basically played one season in almost three. You just can't do it at this point.
Great stuff, Jordan. Great to connect with you again. Thanks for joining us.
Dan, it's my pleasure, and I owe you a beer because we bet on the Super Bowl, and I lost.
Yeah, well, I felt bad for you because I love the Bengals, but I said the Bengals aren't winning the Super Bowl. And you being
right, I was wrong.
Yeah, well, you're an NFL insider, right?
I try to be, and I also want to say go Flyers. My mom's from Lima, Ohio.
All right. Well, thank you, Jordan. Thanks for joining us.
Brother.
Jordan Schultz, the Schultz Report, also co-host of Pull Up Podcast with CJ McCollum, also host of Game Plan on Kevin Durant's Boardroom.